I'm going to turn things over to Howard Baker.
We'll kind of get this thing started. My name's Howard. If you don't know me, I'm Howard Baker with Missouri Rural Water Association. And we've got Ben Hill here with Diamond Maps that's going to help explain how to add this the Missouri lead inventory list directly to your GIS map. And what we would like to do is we're going to keep everybody muted for a little bit and let Ben kind of go over this real quickly. And then we'll open this up a little later on to ask all the questions you got, because it's fairly simple to add and it's fairly simple to use. But if we'll let him kind of get through this whole introduction part, and then you're more than happy to ask any questions you've got. So Ben, if you would like, we'll let you go ahead and get started.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with just a little bit about what Diamond Maps is. But Diamond Maps is a software application that is developed for sewer and water companies. And I'm assuming that a lot of you on here are probably already Diamond Maps customers, but we may have a few that aren't. And so we've helped about over 1,000 towns across the country and rural water districts kind of get started in mapping. And we cater to small communities. And a lot of those are in Missouri. We probably have 100 systems in Missouri using this. And so what I was thinking of doing here is we want to show you how you can use this tool to do your lead service line inventory is the big picture. More specifically, I'm going to jump in and give kind of a summary of how I'm going to start with the scenario of let's say you're already Diamond Maps customer. You already have your points on the map here. I'm just going to show you just an overview of the process of how you would do your lead service line inventory in your existing map, and then how you would then export that out to the spreadsheet that Missouri requires. But once we go through that summary, then we're going to go back and just go through every step in more detail. And in that more detailed step, we're going to even show you how you can start from scratch. If you're not already a Diamond Maps customer, how you can kind of get started and start marking your meter locations, your service locations, and then how to record that inventory. So if you're not already a Diamond Maps customer, don't worry, we're going to go back and show you how to start over again. But that's kind of a summary of where we're going to go. And like Howard said, maybe let me get through this 5 or 10 minute summary, and then we'll maybe open it up for questions, and I'll kind of encourage you to interrupt me either. I guess through the chat would be the best way to ask that question, or maybe we'll have a time where you can ask your question as well. So with that, let me switch over to a map. So I've got a map here of Dearborn, Missouri. This is kind of what I use as my demo map. And again, this summary is going to start from a situation where someone already has their system mapped. And how do we do our inventory from here? Again, we'll come back and show you how you can get to this point if you haven't already. So this is a typical customer's map where they have things marked on here like their water lines and their valve locations and their meter locations. It also has things you can see like fire hydrants and such. This map also has a sewer infrastructure on it, but we're just looking at the water right now. So the first step you would do if you're an existing Diamond Maps customer and you're wanting to do this lead service line inventory is we need to add some special fields to your meter layer to record this inventory. So right now, when you click on a meter on your map, you probably have things like an account number, maybe a name and address, possibly some other information. But we need to add some fields here on this screen so that you can enter, for example, what's the service line material on the customer side versus the water system side. And so here's how you do that. Again, this is if you already have this existing meter layer. You go to your list of layers, you choose your water meter layer, you go to more, add remove fields, and this is where you would add your fields, but we have a tool that allows you to add all of these special fields in batch. That's down here at this add fields from template. I choose the template, which is going to be the lead service line inventory, the Missouri version. This lists all these special fields that you're going to need to record for your inventory. And you click add. It adds these all to my list. I apply. And now my lead service line layer or my meter layer here is ready to go. Now when I click on a meter, if I scroll down, I can see I have places for what is the system specific ID, and we'll go into what these fields mean. But for example, I could come down here to some of the main ones, which are what is the system owned service line material. I can say that's PVC. Was it ever lead? I can go to this list and say no. And you get the idea. There's a lot of questions here. We have these little help things you can click on to give you more details about what these fields mean. But I'm really just hitting the highlights here. A lot of work involved to gather this information. I'm really just showing you where to record it. But you fill this information out like this and click apply, and you move on to the next one, and you enter that information. Now, one of the advantages of doing this in a map, because you can do your lead service line inventory right from the DNR spreadsheet, but the advantage of doing it on a map here is you can do things like color code your progress. So another aspect of this setup is if I again go to my list of layers and go to my meters layer and go to settings, I could say I want to color code all these meters according to the service line material. Apply. Now, if I look at my legend, you can see that all the dots are color coded. You can see this one's pink. So if I click on this one now and come down here and say, this has a service line material of galvanized, and apply, you can see it changed colors. So again, one advantage of doing this in your map is that now I have a color-coded map showing me my progress. To make this a little simpler to look at, I'm going to go turn all my layers off except for just my water meters. And actually, I'm going to make my water meters a little bit bigger of a circle. And so now you can see that it's real easy for me to track the progress of which ones I've done and which ones I haven't done. Another advantage of doing this in the map is the ability to geographically assign something to several points at once. So for example, let's say that this particular neighborhood here on the east side of town, we know that all these homes were built in the late 80s. And so for that reason, we know there's no lead in here. So instead of clicking on these one at a time, I can come in here and use this select and modify tool, choose my meters layer, and draw a fence around it and say, I want to select all of these right here. And then to all of those that I've selected, I choose the set field value. And now I can come in here and batch and say that the customer owned service line material is, again, I'm going off the assumption that all these homes were built at the same time, same plumbing practices. And so I know something about all of them as a whole. And I can say that the customer side is copper, and the line size, and these were all put in about 1988. Fill in whichever details I want and come down here and click apply. And now you can see, these all have that information now. So if I click here, I can scroll down and see my information, copper 3/8, 1988. So again, we added these fields to the layer. We enter the data either one address at a time or in batch like this. And then the last step of this summary is when you dump this out to the DNR's spreadsheet. So to do that, I come down here to the special tools, lead service line inventory, export the report. This is where I indicate which layer contains my inventory, and that's my water meters. I choose the report format, which would be the Missouri DNR spreadsheet. I click next. And this is just a confirmation screen to make sure which pieces of information in your layer correspond to which pieces of information are needed by the spreadsheet. This is going to be filled in for you if you did it through the steps we're doing now. One question it does ask you down here is your water system ID. So you can go here for a lookup table. And I'm in Dearborn. Let's see if I can find that, Dearborn. So I'm going to copy this ID right here and then switch back to my map. If I can get this thing out of my way here. Here we go. Hold on just 1 second here. How do I minimize this toolbar, Andy, up here at the top? It's in my, here, I'll get around it this way. Here, just a second, demo map. Now I'm back. So I copied that ID, I'm gonna paste it in here, and now I click generate report. It's gonna remember this so that each time in the future I run this report, it's gonna remember everything on that screen. But what just happened is it downloaded now a spreadsheet to my computer. And if I click on this spreadsheet, just a second while it's opening up. It opened up on my other screen here. So now this is the Missouri DNR spreadsheet. And it has several tabs across the bottom down here. If I go to the lead service line inventory tab, this is the tab that contains all of the information that we're going to put into this report for you. Now I only added information for a couple of points, so I'd have to scroll down here in the list to find them. Here we go, here's a few. But again, my main point in here is we're going to put all that information from your map directly into the spreadsheet right here. And so it's going to fill all that in. There's some of these fields in here that the spreadsheet automatically calculates for you, and those calculations are still going to work based on the data we've inserted for you. And this is kind of the end result, is we're filling out this spreadsheet with the way they require the information. Let me go back to my map here. One last little point is, in addition to generating the spreadsheet, we also create a kind of an error report or a list of warnings. And so this report is going to tell you that, for example, this is saying 297 times this certain field in the spreadsheet was blank, and it's supposed to have something. So that's basically just telling you that there's some information you haven't filled out completely on your map yet. So this is a way to let you know how thorough you are. It'll also tell you if you've entered a value that's not acceptable on the spreadsheet, so you can go back and look at that. Close that. And so again, what we just went through, that was the summary. Basically, it's showing you how you can take an existing map in DiamondMaps that has the meters already plotted. Now, that's probably not the case for some of you. And add these special fields, do your inventory, and then export it out to this spreadsheet. So maybe we could see if there's any questions waiting, but what we're going to go through next is to show you, first of all, for those of you who aren't using DiamondMaps right now, how you could just create an account and plot these meters on here, kind of starting from scratch. And then we can also go through some of those steps we just went through in the summary in more detail. But let me pause right there. Andy, we have any questions so far?
Jim Patton did make a comment that the Missouri number didn't transfer over, I guess, during what you just did.
Let me just do that again. We'll see what happens here. So let me shrink my screen down here because my Zoom toolbar is covering that top up there. That's what made that so ugly. If I knew how to use Zoom, this would be easier. Here we go. So let's generate that again. So I went to menu, and I come down here to special purpose tools, lead service line inventory, export inventory. I indicate that I want the Missouri format. And I've again, it's remembered that the layer of interest here is the water meters. Next. It's showing me all these fields. If I come down here at the bottom, here's the piece of information that I got in there. The way I got that in there is I clicked here to see the lookup table. I searched for my system. I copied this right here, copy, switch back here and paste that in right here. And then let me show you where that goes in the report, generate report. By the way, this has to be exactly spelled like it is in that lookup list. You know, it starts with MO and it has your number. So now let me open up my spreadsheet. And that's not the correct number. Hold on, we're waiting on it. Here it comes.
That is.
I don't think, no, that's not. Here's why. So when this spreadsheet is first created, it's locked. So you have to click this enable editing button up here at the top of your spreadsheet. And now you can see it's
there you
filled
go.
that in. Thanks for catching that, Jim. I have noticed that until you enable editing, it won't actually put this in here. And the reason it's doing that is in the DNR spreadsheet, it's designed so that you actually only enter that system ID in this very top cell, and then it automatically calculates it for the rest. It duplicates it for the rest of the cells. And until you enable editing, it won't run that formula. That's why we didn't see that before.
Thank you. Hey, we do have a question, a couple of them. The first question is, I've already entered around 200 locations on the state spreadsheet. Can I now move that to Diamond Maps without re-entering that information?
You can. We'll handle that one on a case-by-case basis. We do a lot of assistance for our customers where you give us a spreadsheet and we'll help you merge that into your map. So in that case, I would say send us your spreadsheet you've already done, and we will get that on your map in the right way. Actually, I'll go a little further than that and say, for any Diamond Maps customers, all the steps I just showed you on how to set up this layer, how to add these special fields to your layer, just contact us through our normal support channels, and we can even just set that process up for you. The reason we're not just automatically doing that for everyone is for some reasons I want to show you when we go through this process here in a little more detail as to how sometimes it's maybe not quite as simple as I just showed you. And so we want to have those one-on-one conversations before we do it for you. But I think if you follow me through the next steps, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's not too hard to set this up yourself.
Hey, Ben, we have two more questions, and then I will hush and let you move on to the next. If you have a meter number in your meter layer, but do not have addresses listed on the meter layer, how hard is it to add the addresses, or do they have to be typed in by hand?
We're going to show an example of that. One option obviously is to type them in by hand. The other option is if you have the meter number entered. Let me switch over to the map. This is a very common question. So let me go to my list of layers and water meters, browse. So here's an example right here, this map we're looking at. They have a number field, which is probably an account number.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, it could be a meter number, whatever, but there's no addresses. So of course, the hard way is to click on them one at a time and, type in that address here. But if you can get an export from your billing software, like your water billing software, that shows the water number, the account number and the address, we can merge that in here for you. We do that for customers all the time. You actually have the tools here. You could even do it yourself, but I would recommend you just send us that export from your billing software. And what our process does is it takes your spreadsheet and matches up this account number from the map to your spreadsheet, and then brings in all this other information, such as address and name. As far as your lead service line inventory goes, the address is probably the only thing you need that's going to come from the billing software, but we can bring in all that information. And I'm actually going to show you a little example of how to do that. But
And one more quick question.
Mhm.
Would you have any recommendation for GPS devices that a system would use in conjunction with Diamond Maps?
Let me just pull up a list here real quick. Sorry. This is our standard answer I've got saved as a, yeah, that didn't come in very nicely. Let me put this in an email. Well, we can now, I want to give you a better answer than that. Don't save Outlook. Just a second. New. There we go. So I'm actually going to show you next how you can do this without a GPS. A GPS is not required. It is the best way to map out your system, your meters, your water valves, things like that. By far, using a GPS is the best way. I'm also going to show you a way you can do it without a GPS. But when it comes to GPS, this is some of our recommendations. Actually, this is really just what our customers are telling us they're using. And it's kind of an old spreadsheet. This R1 doesn't even exist anymore. But if you want a GPS that's going to be accurate to within what they call sub-meter GPS, accurate to within a couple feet, as you can see here, you're going to pay for that kind of a GPS. You're going to pay in the $2,000 to $3,000 price range. If you want something that's accurate down to sub-foot, like even just a few inches or sometimes even less than an inch, you know, this is something you're going to have to pay several $1,000s for, you know, in the $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 for. But again, these are all GPS devices that our customers tell us they use. One that's really extremely popular right now is this Trimble Catalyst. For the Trimble products, the Trimble rep is Seiler out of St. Louis there for your area. But this R2 is extremely popular. It's capable of getting very accurate. You can see this is the price. These are old prices. It could be a little more now. They also sell a downgraded version of the R2 that is less accurate. It's only like 2 foot accurate, but you can get it for like $3,500. And then later, if you want to upgrade to this full accuracy, you just pay the price difference. So if I had to specifically recommend one, this R2 is good. The second one I'd recommend is this Catalyst. The Catalyst I would call it similar technology as the R2, except that it has a very different pricing model. You pay just a small amount up front. I think it's about $400 now. You pay $400 up front, and then you pay a subscription. And the subscription is based on what accuracy you want. But you know, you would have to use this thing for several years before you would get up to the cost of buying this R2 outright. And the nice thing is, if you ever damage it or something, it's only $400 to buy a new one. So we don't get any kickbacks or from any of these vendors, but this is we get asked questions all the time about what GPS to recommend. So again, in summary, I would give Trimble a call. It's Seiler Geospatial out of St. Louis, and talk to them about, and I would specifically talk to them about these two options right here. But there's other options as well. This Geode by Juniper Systems, if plus or minus 2 foot of accuracy is enough for you, this is a pretty good price for that. But anyway, that's probably more than you were asking, but that's what we recommend for GPS. Any other questions, Andy, before we?
Yes, sir. Couple more. Herman, you might have to specify a little bit better. Our account numbers change and we have duplicate meter numbers. How do we generate the system specific ID?
Yeah, let me, we get asked this question enough that I think I could talk to that point. So specifically related to the idea earlier, I was saying how you can import. Actually, let me show you how you do that. So back to an early question. Here's a map where I have an account number but no address. And so let's say that the customer sends you a file. Let me pull up, not the customer, your billing software. Let's say your billing software sends you a spreadsheet like this meters file right here. Let me open up this spreadsheet. So here in this spreadsheet, I can see that it has an account number, it has a name, it has an address. If it's coming from your billing software, it probably has a lot of other information in here, such as names and phone numbers and even last meter readings. But assuming you have a file, a CSV file like this that has this field with this unique number, and to Herman's question, I think the issue is going to be, well, this number is not always unique or it changes. But let's talk about the simple case where maybe it doesn't change. I can take this file and import it into the map. So let me go back to my map. From my map, we have a tool called Merge Table, where I can choose this spreadsheet, which I think it's here in my downloads folder. Here it is, meters, open. And then I tell it what layer I want to merge this information into, and that would be my water meters. And the key field is this number field. And I say import. And it says it matched a bunch of records. And so now if I go back to my layer list, layers, water meters. Actually, let me just refresh my map. I may have to refresh it to see this new information. Now I go to layers, water meters. Now you can see I have a name and address for all of these meters. And these are points that were already on my map. I just updated these two attributes. Now, to what I think is Herman's question. These for some systems, this might be an account number, and when one tenant moves out and a new tenant moves in, you probably get a new account number. Or if you're keying off of like a meter serial number, sometimes that meter serial number maybe have swapped out. If we're going to run this merge and bring in data like this, it is important that you have some field that uniquely identifies that meter. So if your account numbers change, then you need to first on your map, make sure that all these points have the most recent account number before you run this merge. If you have duplicate account numbers, then you either need to do this matching up of data based on some other field, such as a meter serial number, or based on some location ID. But we can't work magic there. If you have, if you have 2 meters numbered 133, we have no way of knowing which record in your spreadsheet goes to which meter. And I don't know if that answers your question, but we could maybe answer that in more detail one-on-one if you want to give us a call here this week. But I will say in general, it is common that customers have this meter data in different places, and we can definitely help you get that all into one place. We really like to promote the idea that you want one version of the truth. And so you want just one layer on your map, one meter layer that has all this information. And sometimes that involves some manual massaging of the data. I don't know if any of you guys have talked to Zach here, but he is an Excel wizard, and you give him an Excel file that contains this data. A lot of the times we can match it up with your map. Not always, but he can do some amazing things there. Any other questions, Andy?
There aren't any right at the moment. Herman did go ahead and reply. He's asking about the number required on the DNR spreadsheet, system specific ID.
Okay, let's let me answer that one. I'm going to go into a little more detail of a walkthrough.
Gotcha.
And actually, I'll skip ahead to that part. So Herman, tell me if this is answering your question. So let's, I got too many windows open here. Go back to my map. So let me, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you how you could start a map from scratch, even if you're not a DiamondMaps customer. And then I'm gonna address the question of the DNR. Let me click on one of these meters here. Trying to expand this window, here we go. So when I added all of these fields, these lead service line inventory fields, one of them is this system specific ID that it just added here. Now, if you already have a meter layer, what they're wanting here is a unique identifier for each service. And this is going to be, for example, your account number or the meter serial number, that kind of an ID. What I'm going to show you here, and I'll show you this when we go into this, I'm going to redo this process of adding these fields, and I'll show you how to do it then. But what we're going to do is we can tell it to not add this field. There's no reason for us to have a field called system specific ID when you already in your map have an account number or a meter serial number. So I'm going to show you how we can just not even add this field and then tell the report process to use your existing field to satisfy that requirement. So we will get to that step. That's what you can look out for. So let's look at the scenario of what if you're not a DiamondMaps customer, you're starting from scratch, maybe you have no mapping at all. Here's how you can get started. If you go to our website, diamondmaps.com, I definitely recommend watching this little 5-minute summary video here. But if you click on our start free trial, and I'm going to actually go ahead and enter let's do Dearborn since we're already working there. Company, ABC Water, and go. Now, you won't get this question, but it's saying, hey, you already have an account. Are you sure you want to create a new one? Yes, I do. And I click on this right here, and it opens up with a blank map. You can see I don't have any layers, but I can see the aerial photography in the background. I can see the streets. And so this 30-day free trial, by the way, at the end of 30 days, this free trial just ends. We can definitely talk to you about pricing. Pricing is on our website. Give you an idea, for a $20 a month subscription, you can have a single user access to this software, full access. You can do everything we're showing you with that $20 a month subscription. If you're a really little system, already this morning we had a call or email from someone down by Branson, really small system. If you have fewer than 300 water meters you serve, we discount our pricing significantly. I think we quoted that person like $6 a month. So if you're really small and the $20 a month intimidates you, we can work with you on that. But again, free trial is just a free trial. But once you have created this account, you could go to your list of layers, and you have no layers starting off. I can say I want to add a layer, and this asks you for the type of layer. I can say, well, it's a water meter layer. I click create, and now I have a layer. And then what I recommend is to get all of your services marked on the map, i.e. your water meters. Get them all mapped on the map first, and then you can come back and enter your lead service line inventory information. But I suppose you could, just as you go doing your inventory, you could mark them on the map as you go. But here's one simple way I've seen people mark their meters. And that is they just sit down at the computer with the meter reader, and they come up here and click draw, choose their meter layer, and I click point, and the meter reader says it's just to the south of this driveway, you know, a little bit off of the edge of pavement, about right there. Keyword being about. I could type in an account number, click add, move on down to the next one. I can say this one down here is, you know, just north of the driveway right there. Type in the account number. Now, even though I'm just eyeballing this and pointing and clicking, if I scroll down here, I can see it's already recorded the latitude and longitude coordinate of each point. Some people think that if you don't use a GPS, you don't have coordinates. That's not true. So, you know, just that process, I've seen a meter reader sit at his desk here and plot 400 meters in a day just by pointing and clicking like that. So that's one way you can start. Another way is a lot of systems we work with, if you have recently went through a meter change out, it's possible that someone recorded latitude, longitude coordinates for all of your meters. And so if they can give you a spreadsheet, let me see if I can find one here. So here's an example spreadsheet that maybe you could export from your billing software or your meter reading software, where it has information like names and numbers. But most importantly, what we're looking for here is that each one has some coordinates, like a latitude and longitude coordinate. If you have this, then you can go to your menu and say import CSV points, choose that file. It's in my downloads, and it's called which I have too many Excel spreadsheets open. Water meters, there we go. This one right here. And I say import. And now it's automatically brought in all of those points. So now I brought them all in this way. Another thing we can do is if you don't have latitude, longitude coordinates in your billing software, and that's probably the case with most people, we can automatically plot these by their address. So that way, when you import this list of points, I'm going to show you, it's probably going to come in like right on top of the house. That's a good case scenario. It may show a block down based on how good the addressing is in your area. But we can bring them all in, showing them on the house. But then you can move it by clicking on the point and then saying adjust, drag it out to where it needs to go, and then click done. And you can correct them that way. So point being, when you're starting from scratch, you can either manually point and click and mark each meter, or we could import them based on their coordinates or their address. And that's a good way to start so that you have all these points on here. So now let's say we've got these points on our map. Now let's go back and look at how do we add all the lead service line inventory fields to this meter layer. Maybe let me pause there. Andy, any questions come up about that so far?
We had a question about, can I stand at my meter with my phone and pin it with GPS, link that to my system in DiamondMaps?
Yeah. Simple answer, no, only because you said phone. So let me tell you, when it comes to using a GPS, let me tell you how you would do that with a GPS, and then I'll tell you why you don't want to do it with your phone. So if you had an external GPS device, such as one of those GPS devices I was showing you in that list earlier, you could walk out in the field with this DiamondMaps here running on your tablet or your phone. And as you walk down the street, you'd see a little yellow dot following you, showing you where you are. And so what you would do is you would go and stand over that meter, and then you would come up here to draw. Now, before I was using this blue button to point and click. Let me do that again. This is the point and click method where I say my meter's right there. But if you're using a GPS, you go out there and stand over the meter, and then you just click this GPS button, and it puts the meter on the map for you where you're currently standing. And so you can see that's a little simpler process and a more accurate process. But so your phone and tablet do have a GPS built into them, and this process will work with the GPS in your phone. But the GPS built into your phone and tablet has an uncertainty of about 15 feet. And so you could be standing over this meter and it puts the dot on the other side of the road. And that is not an exaggeration. That's on a good day, your points may be off by 10 feet. And so what I tell people is, you can eyeball it. You can use this point and click method and say it's about right there. And that is much more precise than using the GPS that's built into your phone. So, the best option is go out there with a good GPS. Second best option is to plot them by hand. And I wouldn't even consider using the phone unless you're, I guess if you were out marking a pasture tap or something where you have no visual landmarks like trees and sidewalks and things, then that's a case where maybe your phone's better than nothing. But I would not recommend using your phone. One more woe story on using the phone. I did have a customer who went out. He actually bought like a Garmin from Walmart for about $500, which has the same uncertainty as a phone, same inaccuracy. Went out and plotted all of his valve locations. And then when he pulled up the map, you could see that all of his points were off by 10 to 20 feet. And so he then proceeded to then click on each one of those that were wrong, and he would adjust them, and he'd say, okay, well, I know it plotted it wrong, but I'm going to move it down here. And that's fine, except that if the visual here was the authority on where it goes, then that's how you should have plotted them in the first place, just to save you the time of using that low accuracy GPS. Any other questions there, Andy?
I am going to ask if Herman can unmute to better ask his question. I'm just smart enough to be really ignorant when it comes to the lead service line inventory or Diamond Maps. So I don't want to ask the question in the wrong context. Herman, can you unmute your do you have microphone capability? No, he cannot. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and read what he said. They have no number associated with an individual meter that are specific or unchanging. So he was asking if there's a recommendation for how to generate one to the system's greatest benefit.
I'll tell you what I would recommend, and I'll defer to MRWA as whether they think the DNR would accept this. But several states we're working with are accepting latitude, longitude coordinates in place of a system-specific ID. And so we would have the ability to automatically put those coordinates in there if you think the DNR would be okay with that. If not, one simple thing to do is with every point you add to your map, we automatically generate this, what we call a feature ID. That's this number shown down at the bottom here, this 115. That's a unique number associated with this point. It's a number that may not mean anything to anybody else, but if you are the user of the map, that number would mean something to you. So if I would say you could just put this feature number into the spreadsheet, and that would suffice as a unique ID. I'm not saying that with any authority from DNR, but I think that would work.
I think Jim Patton just commented. I'm waiting for him to give me a response. He's our EPA person on the latitude, longitude points.
Okay.
Jim, you can unmute your co-host at this point.
Hello.
There you are.
Yep.
Yes.
You can. DNR will accept the latitude and longitude ID numbers.
So Jim, while I got you here, so what we have done in other states is if a customer leaves their service address blank, then we automatically fill it in with a latitude longitude. So would that be is that
Yeah,
something
that
safe
number-
we could tell customers that that's okay to leave that blank?
That number will not change unless you go and move the meter somewhere. But
Right.
that number will not change, and that's what that system specific ID number is. Something that will not change.
Okay.
So, well, if
That's
you
good.
use the meter number, eventually you're gonna have to change it. So that's why they are saying something that will not change. So,
Okay.
and they will accept the lat and the long.
So I guess I would translate that in DiamondMaps terms to mean that if you were to leave that blank, we can put something in there for you, a unique number.
Yep. And they would just use that the numbers that you put in there, longitude or whatever number that you're using, just keep it the same all the way through.
Okay. We will we'll add that to our help text in here. Andy, anything else before I move on to?
One more question. Will a home address layer work instead of a meter location layer?
I'll probably defer to Jim on this one too, but I would speculate the answer to that one's no. But Jim?
You've already got the address on there. You're supposed to put the home physical address on there anyway. This ID number, it has, no, I'm going to agree. No, it has to be a different number that will connect to that address number.
Yeah, there's too many cases
I'm
where a
saying.
landlord owns several properties and maybe
Yeah. Well, it's just like an apartment. You got several meters in there, and they're all in one. Say they're in one pit. You got 2 meters or 3 meters. This is where we're going to have to, when we use that land and longitude number, you'll have to put like an A or B or something like that. I would say too.
Yeah. That brings up a good point, Jim. We see a lot of maps where someone will have a single point on the map like this right here. And then in the box for account number, they might have 35,36 because this is a pit that has 2 different meters in it. I would recommend cleaning this up before you start entering your lead service line inventory. For example, I would just add another point there right next to it. Let's see, I've got 2 water meter layers now. If you remember right, I created one for manually plotting them, and the second one I imported. So I would put another point there right next to it and call this one 36 and then rename the other one to just 35 so that you have 2 distinct records to enter that information on. Any other questions there, Andy, before?
This one might be a Jim question as well. Our addresses have a location number assigned already. If we use the location number, is that okay?
And it is that is a good number to use. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I think that answers the questions that we have thus far.
Okay. Well, let me, let's take this layer that we just imported. So again, we're looking at a scenario if someone has a meter layer, but they don't have all these special lead service line fields in there yet. And in this process, we're going to address this issue of, well, what if I already have an address field? And what if I already have this meter number field? So the process of adding these fields, like we kind of did in the summary, is I'm going to go to my list of layers. Let me delete one of these water meters to avoid some confusion here. I'm going to take this first one and say remove layer, confirm. So I just have a single water meter layer here. I go to that layer and I go to add remove fields. And this is where I'm going to add all these special fields. And so to do that, I say add fields from a template, and I choose the Missouri lead service line inventory template. Now let's pause right here on the screen. I want to show you something that you might want to do. Before I showed you how we just scrolled to the bottom and clicked OK, and we added all these fields and we were ready to go. But now that we've talked about what these fields are in a little more detail, in this case here, I'm going to suggest that we don't add a field for system specific ID, and we do not add a field for service address because we already have those fields in our data. If you have already in your meter layer started your own kind of little lead service line inventory, maybe you've already created some of these fields and you've been recording data, such as the material. Well, you could uncheck this box and then just use the fields you already have for that. But for now, we're going to add all these, but just not add the system specific ID and the service address. And I'm going to show you how your existing field makes its way to the end report this way. So I'm going to come down here and click OK. Let me scroll back up here. You'll note there are some little question mark buttons here that I would recommend clicking on all these. So for example, this system specific ID, if I click right here, so basically this is telling you what we were just talking about. It's saying if you already have an account number or meter number, then don't add this field. That's basically what that's saying. So I'm going to click OK. Now it has added all these fields to my list. You do have the ability to reorganize these here if you want, but I'm just going to click apply. Let me pause right here. You'll notice that a lot of these fields are pick lists. So for example, the water main material is a pick list type field. And so if you've ever set up your own DiamondMaps layer like this, you might understand what that means. But if I go look at the details on that, you can see that we've already populated the pick list items based on the DNR's spreadsheet. So I'd recommend not changing these, because if you do change these, then when you export it to the report, it's going to tell you, hey, you entered a value that's not acceptable, because these are the acceptable values. So point being, hey, leave these alone. But so I've added all these fields. I'm going to apply changes. One more thing I want to show you before I apply changes. There is a new field type. So existing DiamondMaps customers might be seeing this multi-pick down here and wonder what this is. So for this field that is asking for the method you use to inventory this service line. This is a case where if I go look at this list, I can see all these choices here. This multi-pick is a way so that the user is not limited to just picking one. They can pick all that apply. And I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But anyway, apply changes. Now, when I click on one of these meters, I can see all of our special fields down here. Now you'll note that this time there is no system specific ID. We didn't add that field to our layer. Speaking of this multi-pick, so down here on the public water supply side inventory method, if I go to my pick list, it shows me, it's basically asking you, how do you know what you've said here? And I could say, well, we visually inspected it and we have some paper records. Basically, you're just checking all that apply. Customer, the customer identified some information. So I pick all of those and I click OK, and it puts all that in there. That's the way this field works. Let's see. This customer refused inventory. This is, Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. I think we added this field. It's not actually a field in the DNR spreadsheet, but if you check this box, then let me switch over to the spreadsheet. I think what we do is we add a note. You scroll across here. there's one of these fields that I can't remember. In one of these fields, we add a note just saying, hey, the customer refused this, is what that check mark does.
Yeah, Ben, it's actually in the last field on the very far right. It's a note area.
Ah, right there. That's where we put that. So that's what that checkbox is. Let me switch back. And so again, you fill out all this information. Let me apply here. I want to go to my list of water meters. I just want to pick water meter number 1 here. And I want to put just something in here. 123 Maple Leaf Avenue. And click apply. And so what I want to show you now is when we export this out to the spreadsheet, how it's going to take your name and address field and put them into that spreadsheet, even though we didn't use the name and address from the template, if that makes sense. I click menu. I go down here to special purpose tools, lead service line inventory, export. I'm going to indicate that this is the Missouri. We changed maps is why it's forgotten what our entries were here. And next. And so now let me, we kind of flew through this screen earlier, but what this screen is saying, and you only have to set this up once, it remembers what you put in here. But over here on the left-hand side, it's basically saying these are all the pieces of information that are required by the spreadsheet. And then on the right-hand side it's basically, this is a way of saying what field in my data contains that information. Now, most of this is filled in for you because, for example, the spreadsheet wants a water main material. Well, we recognize that you already have a field called water main material, and so it's filled this in for you. But the spreadsheet wants a system specific ID, and you didn't have a field called system specific ID. That's why this isn't filled in for you. But you can go in here and say, this number field is what I'm going to use for my system specific ID. Or Herman, in your case, if you was to choose this feature ID, this is a unique number that we assign to every meter. And that would suffice here for the system specific ID. I'm going to choose number. And same with service address. We chose not to add the service address field from the template because we already have a field and it's called address. And so I picked those right there. Again, we've created a brand new map is why it's not remembering what I picked here before. So let's go pick something one more time. I highlight this, I press Control C to copy that. I switch back to my map. I Control V to paste that in there. And say generate report. It's downloading. I open it up. Give it a second while it opens here. Here we go. I switch to my inventory tab. Now again, I need to click enable editing up here. Now, what I want to show you is you can see here that it has filled in this system specific ID with our account number. And it has put what the map calls address into the service address field. So again, the point I wanted to make there is your field names in your map don't exactly have to match the report. You can indicate what data comes from where. Another thing I want to point out here is we are just automatically filling in this Missouri LSLI tab of the spreadsheet. Before you actually submit this, there's some other information here you're going to need to fill out. Maybe it's just this tab, but you need to look this over. The only thing we are filling out is just this tab of the spreadsheet. I do recommend that you don't wait until the very end of doing your complete inventory before you generate this report. I would recommend that you get a few points on your map and get some information entered about your lead service line inventory, and then do a test run and run this report. Just so you can look it over. It'd be a tragedy to do your whole report and then find out you had entered something in the wrong field. It'd be nice to see that now before you do the whole job. But each time you generate this report, it does create a whole new file. So just keep that in mind. Switch back to my map here. Okay, I'm back here to my test map. Another thing I kind of flew through in the summary there that I want to show you in a little more detail is, one is setting up this color coding. So let's go through that again. And so here's a point on the map. If I come down here to the lead service line inventory, there's different ways to color code your map. The two things that are going to be, you might want to consider basing this color coding on is, one is the service line material, but you have two fields for that. You've got the system owned side and the customer owned side. I would decide which one of those is the more interesting to you. I'll actually show you a way you can color code based on both, but so I can say, I'm just going to put a value in here. Let's say then this one's TVC. And if I scroll down here to the customer owned service line material, let's say it's copper, and apply. Now, again, let's go back through the steps of how you set up this color coding, because the color coding is a great way to just look at your map and tell your progress. So to do this, I go to my layers, I click on my water meter layer. This browse tab shows me all my meters as you mark a meter on the map, it puts it in the list here. But I want to go to my settings, and I am going, if you already have a symbol on your map, such as like a lot of our maps, they use this little water meter symbol like this. If you have one of these colorful symbols, in order to do the color coding, you first have to change it to one of these vector symbols, because these are color codable. These down here are not. So change it to one of these symbols up here. And now when you change it to one of these gray vector symbols, the color on the map takes on the colors associated with this layer. So I could say, I want my line color, which is the border, to be black. I want to make that a thinner line. These are just my preferences. I'm going to change the color to be orange, and I'm going to increase this fill opacity to be 100, just so it stands out as a nice bold orange dot. So right now, all the dots are orange. But if I want to color code it, then what I do is I say, for the fill color, instead of using the same color for all of them, I want to classify that based on, now here's where I have to make a decision. I can either base it on the water system side material or the customer owned service line material. I'm going to base it on the customer owned material, because maybe I think that's where I'm going to have the most variability. Maybe not. I click apply. And now it has, if I click now where it says fill color, now it says based on customer owned service line material. So if I click here, I can see that it's made a list of every possible value and assigned a color to them. And it's also assigning red to those that have nothing. So this is your way of indicating which ones you've not visited yet. They're still red. And you could click on these and change their color. If you wanted copper to be something besides blue, you can just do like that. That was total coincidence. I picked a copper colored color for copper. And I click apply there. And so now my map is color coded that way. Now, so right now if I look at my legend, I can see they're color coded by customer owned service line material. If I really wanted to get fancy, I could come in here and say, well, I want to also see the water system side material. So one way to do that is you could classify the line color. So I'm going to click classify up here, and I'm going to say, I want the border color to be based on the water system side material. Apply. I want to make this a little bit thicker. While I'm at, let's use a bigger symbol. and close. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but this dot here has a white border and a copper colored interior. If I click on this one and change the outside from PVC to lead, it now changes to blue. So you can set up a one color representing the perimeter of the symbol based on the system owned material and the interior based on the customer owned material. Yeah, that's one way to show both colors. I think most people are going to use this color coding just to indicate which services we've already visited. So really, if you just color code by either one of them, it's going to be a way to tell you how complete your job is. So anyway, that's how you set up this color coding. Another thing I kind of flew by was how to assign attributes to a whole area at once. So let me show you that again. So again, you can click on the individual points and enter your information this way. That definitely works. If you want to do it in batch, you go to the menu and you choose this select and modify. When it's important to choose the layer, you might have several layers listed here. I'm going to choose my water meter layer. And then there's a few ways to select. Let me zoom in here. You could, I suppose if there's some certain attribute that you want to enter for the whole system, you could just draw a box around the entire system and say, I want to set everything to a certain value for the whole system. Probably not the case, but if you do have some default values you want to enter, that would work. I want to clear my selection here.
Like a zip code.
Like a zip code. That's a good example. Thank you. Let's just do that example. I'm going to come in here and select everything. We zoom out a little bit more. Zoom. Come on. Okay, rectangle select. Select all these. I can see I missed one up here, so I can draw another box and select it. And so then I say set field value. And now this is listing all the fields that pertain to meters. So if I come down here to zip code, right here, the top one, I click in zip code. I don't know what the zip code is here, so I'm going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I click apply. And it tells me that it just modified 298 features. I'm going to click this clear button to clear the kind of the highlighting on the map. Now, if I click on any meter, I can see that it has a zip code. And so you could use that same process to assign to other things. Let's do one more time. So down here in this area, if I want to assign something to this whole neighborhood, or maybe a street, I go to menu, select and modify, choose my layer. This time I'm going to use the fence selection tool. And let's say that I just went down this street and did an inventory, and I want to record something about all these points. So I could kind of in real detail here, come down here and do something like this and select all these. And it tells me 9 selected. I could even do another selection and say, I also did these right here. And then if I say, well, I didn't mean to select this one down here, I can click this button to select individual features and click here and unselect that one. But once I get the things selected that I want to attach some information to, I then come here and do this set field value. And then again, this is where I choose the fields that I want to assign something to. Let's just put a few in here. Was lead ever upstream? No. By the way, a lot of these choices, you're going to see unknown as one of the choices. I would recommend the practice of if at the time you're doing this inventory, you don't know what the answer to this question is, but you think you might be able to determine it later, then I would say leave it blank for now, because blank is an indication that you're not yet done with this particular service. especially when it comes to the fields that you're color coding on, such as, here we go, service line material. If you put unknown, then it's going to change on the map to the color for unknown. But if you're thinking, I don't know now, but we've asked the homeowner, we're going to find out later, leave it as blank for now to indicate that you're not done with this one. But if you do know, put an answer in there. And now let me show you one little, this process is only going to update these fields that I have selected. For example, it's going to leave the zip code alone. Whatever's in there already, it's going to leave it alone because I haven't selected it. Now, here's a mistake customers will make. If I click on this water domain material and then realize, oh, I don't want to put anything in here. I don't want to mess with that. Well, if I was to click apply right now, it's going to assign blank to the water main material for all of these selected points. And you probably don't want to do that because you may have already entered something for that. So make sure you click here again to take that away so if there's nothing here on the right, that means it's not going to mess with that field. So right here, all it's going to do is assign these two fields to these selected points. I click apply and they're all done. The clear button clears that highlighting. And so now you can see I don't know if you can see that, but the border of all these points changed because our color coding rule says that green is galvanized. Andy, any questions there while I look at my notes?
Yes, sir. We did have a question. One of the systems says they have integrity GIS mapping. Can they get their info into DiamondMaps?
Yeah, if you have any kind of a GIS, you can just simply send us your GIS files and we'll set up your map for you and set you up with a free trial. So that's one way to do it. You do have the ability to import those files yourself. Like if you went in here and created a free trial of DiamondMaps, you can go into the menu and say import and import from shaped files, any other GIS product. I'm not familiar with Integrity, but it probably has the ability to export out to a shape file, or maybe you have to ask the vendor to get that for you. I'm not sure. But a shape file is a common file format. The KML or KMZ file format, which is made popular by Google Earth. A lot of other GIS systems can export to that file format, or just simply a CSV or Excel spreadsheet type format. But if you can get your files to us in any of those formats, we'll put that into your map here for you, even at the beginning of your free trial. What we can't work with is, for example, a PDF file. If you have a PDF file that has a map of your system, a PDF is pretty much just like a piece of paper on the computer. We can't really do much with that. But we can work with CAD files. We run into a lot of systems where maybe your engineer at one time created a wall map for you and he has all that in an AutoCAD drawing. We can sometimes import that for you and put that into your map. And we don't charge anything for converting your data like this. Any other questions?
That's it for now. Hold on. One question just came in. If you create a free trial and are not able to start a paid subscription right away, what happens to the data that is entered?
Two things. One is you can simply export it. So if you go in here to the export button, you could export all your data out to a shape file. For example, if I choose export to shape file, I say select all my layers. I only have one layer here, but you say select all and export. And now this downloads to your computer a zip file that contains all this data that you could then put into any other GIS software or come back to us later. And however, even if you didn't do this, we don't throw anyone's data away unless they tell us to destroy the data because they don't want us keeping a copy of it, and that's fine. But we keep all of your data so that if you ever decided later on to come back, your data will still be here. And we also extend these free trials very generously. I mean, we've had customers who sign up for a free trial and say, my board's not ready to talk about this for another 2 months. Well, we'll extend your free trial out through that time. As far as pricing, then the only reason I'm going to bring up pricing here is a lot of systems have not adopted GIS just because they think it's too expensive. You can get this single user subscription for $20 a month, or we also offer enterprise subscriptions based on your population or based on your meter count. For example, we look up here for a system with 500 meters, or let's say 1,000, maybe that's a little more typical. For someone with 1,000 meters for $36 a month, you get our enterprise subscription, unlimited users. That's everything we sell. We have never raised a customer's price in our 7 years of business. So that's what that would be your price. Another thing I want to add is we are not an authority on how to do your lead service line inventory. How you should go out there and how do I determine what my material is? What do I need to do? Do I need to dig it up? Do I need to do this? We're not the authority on that. That's where, I don't know, Missouri Rural Water can take those calls, or there's other companies out there who are doing that kind of field work for you. We're not that. We're basically we're kind of providing you the tools as a do-it-yourself solution is really what we're offering here. Anything else there, Andy?
No, sir.
Well, that's everything I had on my list. Any of you other guys have anything?
I just wanted to add that the whole key thing to this is the ability to actually have a visual cue on what you have done. And as opposed to looking at a spreadsheet and you could say, well, I've got 1,000 meters to do, or I've got 500 meters to do, and I've got 25 done. If you highlight this on your map, that's one of the cool things. It's a reminder. It's a constant reminder. I've got this much done. I got to get this much more done. And this is a perfect tool for that. And to actually to be able to highlight, and I think we've said this before, work on what you know, and this will help you take out the stuff you do know and get it out of the way. And the stuff that's unknown, then you have to spend a little bit more time. But this tool will give you the ability to break this down into little chunks that's a little bit more manageable. And then instead of looking at this entire project thinking I can't get it done. This will help you get it done.
I want to also bring attention to one other thing here. I can find it. If you go to diamondmaps.com/lead, we have basically everything I've been talking about here, we have summarized on this website, diamondmaps.com/lead. And there's actually 4 videos here. This first video is a summary of basically the whole process. And then the second video goes into how to set up your layer to do an inventory. The third video goes into how to actually do your inventory. And this talks about how you can draw a box around an entire neighborhood and assign stuff that way. And then the last video talks about how do you actually generate that report. And so this is a good way if you want to review what we've talked about here. It's a good place to start. But other than that, that's all I had for today.
I included the link in the chat box form as well there, Ben.
Thank you.
Well, Ben, thanks for coming out and doing this. I guess we give you a couple of seconds here if anybody's got any questions. And as a reminder, we're going to talk to DNR tomorrow. Same type of setup here. We'll have a webinar. Y'all come watch that. We may have some more questions that kind of tied directly to this mapping stuff to DNR. Maybe we get some questions there straightened out. But I guess, like I said, I'd like to thank Ben for doing this. And if there's no more questions, we're going to let y'all get on about your day.
Any more questions? Nothing coming in.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good day.